International relations analyst Dr Alexander Rusero now joins us by video link to weigh in on the passing of Namibian President Hage Geingob and his legacy at large. A very good afternoon, Dr. Alex. Thank you for your time with us here on the SABC at this hour.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
We are looking at Hage Geingob, President of Namibia, having passed away at the age of 82 after cancer treatment. We're shining a spotlight on his legacy. I mean, we know that he was Namibia's longest-serving prime minister, the first president outside of the Ovambo ethnic group. He was Namibia's third president. He was an avid football fan. Talk to us about his legacy from your vantage point.
Yeah, I think there is no legacy that surpasses him spending almost 3 decades of his life in exile, specifically for the emancipation of the people of Namibia. Because you recall very well that President Geingob spent 27 years of his life outside Namibia because of the prevailing colonial politics of the day. That alone is indicative of how selfless he was, in as much as what needed to be done is concerned. But more importantly, he has always been part of the scheme of things, in as much as rallying towards the unification of Namibia is concerned. Construction, weaving, knitting the nation that we call Namibia today, as well as the state that we call Namibia today, because he was the founding father, President Sam Nujoma's first prime minister in the first 12 years of the independent government of Namibia. And this is the most tricky years to be in any position of leadership. If you take a helicopter scan all over Southern Africa, where real liberation movements hail from, you find that many liberation icons did not make it to independence because they will always be the center of focus from the erstwhile colonizers, as well as the internal dynamics also. But he managed to navigate through all those tumultuous years to become the president in 2015. But if you look at the current developments in Namibia right now, I think Namibia is one of the most successful democracy stories of Southern Africa in general, and the entire Africa in particular, courtesy of efforts such as those of the late President Geingob. So there is a lot to tell. You look at the stability even of Namibia's economy right now. You look even at infrastructural development. You look even at the pace at which Namibia also embraces a multicultural and diverse society. Hence, it is one of also the Southern African countries after South Africa where you will find a multifarious potpourri of nationals drawn from all over Africa. It means it is a hospitable state.
Dr. Alex, let me come in there. Thank you very much for speaking to those different elements, because I also want to look at Namibia-South Africa's relationship. I mean, we know that President Hage Geingob took up activism against South Africa's apartheid regime, which obviously at the time ruled over Namibia. From his early schooling years, he was active. This was obviously leading up to when he was driven out into exiles. You alluded to 27 years, in fact. What are you noticing on that front in terms of SA-Namibian relations and his role in liberation?
Yeah, South Africa-Namibia relations, they are very impeccable because they sort of hail from the same cloth. Firstly, you look at the dynamics of Southwest People's Organization and the African National Congress, all being both being liberation movements. So liberation movements, they operate at the level of consent, at the level of cooperation and recommendation. And President Geingob and President Ramaphosa, they appeared more or less close brothers from the same mother. So liberation politics, they have a great deal. But Commonly, you look at the fact that Namibia, after the World War I, was actually given to South Africa, apartheid South Africa, as part of the Paris Peace settlement. So South Africa became the colonizer of Namibia. And the liberation, sister liberation movements, they knew the fact that the same vices of apartheid in South Africa were the same vices of apartheid in Namibia. Hence, the two collaborated even prior to the attainment of independence, to the attainment of democracy. But in the post-independence of the two states, we saw a lot of harmony. Precisely the continued attempts to harness the Rand Union, where the Namibian dollar also traded freely in South Africa, as much as the South African rand also traded freely in Namibia. So that kind of regional integration, yielding as far as 1910, when the South African Customs Union was formed, the oldest customs union in the world. It is still flourishing today, courtesy of these visionary leaders who know that without solid economic integration, there wouldn't be any meaningful political integration. So there is a lot in terms of the similarities, commonalities, and cordiality between Pretoria and Windhoek, precisely because of the shared history.
We're obviously looking at the arrangements that need to be put in place, the protocols that also need to be observed, and even the preparations just to keep Namibia calm and stable as well. And so when we look at, the other side of the man, some of the questionable behavior that also came to the fore, what are you observing on that front? We know that there was the fish rot scandal. How do you think that was also handled? Just looking at the graft allegations amongst other.
Yeah, President Geingob is not a saint like any other political leader in Africa or elsewhere. But what is more important is his reaction. What is more important is his intervention to some of the so-called scandals, precisely the fisheries scandal of 2019. How did he react? You will find out that indeed heads rolled. Ministers were fired. Some were brought before the courts precisely because of the alleged graft. Yes, the kind of corruption and the gravity it had, it put a dent on his legacy. But what is more important is that he is a man who did not fold the hands, who did not just take the allegations lightly, but he had to act in a way which forced some ministers indeed to resign. So that alone is indicative of a man who was attempting to also clean Namibia in as much as issues of graft are concerned. But you also have to know that African states in general, we grapple a lot with the issues of graft. But at the heart of corruption, it's not corruption itself. There are a lot of simmering, invisible coloniality hands, which then manifest as corruption. It's because of the uneven relations we continue to have, we continue to grapple with our erstwhile colonial masters. You look at what Namibia had to do under President Geingob when a German member of parliament asked him, why is it a lot of Chinese are flocking to Namibia? And he actually expressed the Pan-African sentiment that, no, why do you feel sorry about Africa more than us, the Africans themselves? Because we have not complained how Germans or any other Europeans are in Africa, but you seem to be worried about Chinese in Africa. Why do you sort of want to be more Catholic than the Pope? So I think he did a lot to intervene in terms of all the so-called scandals, the so-called other side of him. He did not fold hands, but actually he was very accountable to the actions.